Good people, I'm Dmitry. The 65% keyboard market is about to explode. In my opinion, it's going to be maybe even more popular than the TKL market because the 65%er is kind of the next hot thing. I totally get the obsession of a 65%er for gaming because it's significantly smaller than a TKL keyboard and just one column of keys larger than a 60%er, giving you the essential dedicated arrow keys plus the delete, page down, page up, and insert. Like I said in my keyboard explained video, it's the smallest keyboard size I'm willing to use for basically everything without accepting a major compromise. And so this is the Blackwidow V3 Mini Hyperspeed, Razer's latest attempt at trying to impress the community with a 65% layout, dual wireless connectivity, no throttling on illumination. Yes, that actually was the point mentioned during the brief. This is so Razer. We also have a promised battery life of up to 200 hours, meaning it really puts the V3 Mini Hyperspeed in direct competition versus the ROG Falcon, that is an incredible keyboard in this category and that is also wireless. It's slightly cheaper and it's also slightly smaller. Can I just say how disappointed I am and the entire team is, and probably you guys too, when seeing that price point of $180. That is way too much for a keyboard that is so basic, as you'll see at its core, and I was hoping for a little bit of spice. Razer has been on such a good roll with their mice releases, with the Huntsman releases. Unfortunately, the Blackwidow, I don't want to be disappointed, but I'm getting there. Introducing a new way to temper glass with the Divider 300 series from Thermaltake. I love me a good triangle. There's certain mystery behind it with a flexible interior layout, so you can showcase your system in a particular way. The Divider 300 TG, triangle the right way. All right, let's talk features. At the back, we have a USB-C port, a power switch, and two wireless options. So a Bluetooth 5.2 at 1000 Hz polling and a 2.4 GHz low latency dongle that has its own compartment for travel and is clearly labeled, which I appreciate so much as it's the same dongle design across other products, including the ROG V2. Now what's really cool is they can pair two devices onto a single dongle, thus saving USB port on your computer. And this process is surprisingly seamless, that finds the wireless keyboard and connects it to a supported dongle. Now both my mouse and keyboard are running off the ROG V2 dongle that you can see here, and you can later unpair through the same setting. Of course, this would not be a Razer review without mentioning some form of problems with Synapse. So first of all, when I paired the keyboard to the ROG V2 dongle, the RGB lighting on the keyboard went completely offline and would not sync up to Synapse. And number two, I was experiencing some really weird latency issues where my mouse would be starting to catch up to my mouse movements, or whenever I'd be typing something, I could see those letters eventually catching up to my keystroke, so there's definitely something off with latency. But when I paired the mouse to the keyboard dongle instead, everything was kind of smoothed out. I didn't experience as many latency issues, but still I could feel some stutters here and there with the mouse. And that, my friends, is a problem. I would not recommend this multi-device connectivity to the single dongle, especially with Razer peripherals just yet, because of these inconsistencies. Now, because the V3 is part of the Blackwidow family, we have the familiar base with the glossy chin and the illuminated logo in there too, but because this metal plate underneath the keycaps is not treated with anything, it turns into a bit of a mess very quickly. As for my gaming experience, if you don't need the F-Row, this is an absolutely perfect form factor. You have the dedicated arrow keys, and the Razer yellow switches are fantastic. I cannot game with Razer greens, and I think the Razer yellows are going to be probably the most popular switch for this keyboard type. Next up, we have double shot ABS keycaps with a similar coarse texture of PBT, and this is one of the best ABS keycap sets I've come across, with really strong walls, no glossy texture, and the clean font we've come to expect from Razer. The shine through is surprisingly bright. I keep mine at 40%, and the only imperfection are the slightly darker sections within some characters. That is a result of the double injection mold, like my Windows key has that wave effect at the bottom when viewed at an angle. Now I'm sure many of you are also wondering about why not PBT keycaps, especially at $180, and two things arise here. Number one is that the quality of the ABS keycaps on this keyboard are actually very good, so let's not down them for that, but if they were to include PBT keycaps, it would be acceptable at this price point, right? But doing them right is very expensive, so I can only imagine how much extra cost it would be passed on to the consumer if PBT were actually included with the Blackwidow 65%er. So I'm disappointed not to see them, especially this price point, but I'm also happy not to see them because the keyboard would have been otherwise even more expensive. The secondary side-printed characters are much smaller and are quite muted too, but are easily identifiable when your FN is pressed, as they illuminate in white and help you navigate. So you have all your usual media controls, brightness levels, the functions row, and etc., plus the 4 M keys on the right to configure a few macros. The Mini Hyperspeed comes with 2 switch types, Razer Green and Razer Yellow, both with a transparent housing for that RGB fill. The reason we have no optical switches here is because optical switches are always on and therefore would drain the battery way too quickly, and this being wireless is just not an option. So we have the Razer Greens and Yellows, and if you want to see our full Razer mechanical switches guide, check it out right over here. Now, the Razer Greens are not my preferred switches for gaming, but it is one of my favorite clicky switches because they're not too loud and have a pleasant crisp factor. Take a listen. The Razer Yellows, however, are my preferred switch for this keyboard in particular, and probably for you as well. This is a linear light switch that's received silicon sound dampeners, so bottoming out is not only quiet but pleasant on your fingers, and it's also a really smooth switch all the way down. Alright, so ergonomically the keyboard frame is already nicely angled by default, but 2 more positions are available. The USB-C cable is the same as with the Huntsman family, braided and a little bit chunky. Now when it comes to battery life, Razer is a bit sneaky here because they claim 200 hours on the box and on all the marketing materials, but that is with RGB disabled, okay? And you're not buying this beautifully illuminated keycap set and this keyboard in general to keep the RGB off. So in my testing at 40% brightness, which I think is like the nice middle ground, I dropped 10% in 2 hours. And so by that estimate, you'll lose the full charge in about 20 hours or so. That is not terrible, but it's also not impressive, and bumping the brightness to 100% start to drain the battery at almost twice the speed. So about 10 hours of gaming on full brightness in my testing. We do have some battery savings built into the Synapse, so the keyboard will fall asleep after a certain time and also will dim the lighting after a certain time as well. But overall, I was expecting a slightly beefier battery just because the frame, is a bit chunkier than the competition. And with all that said, the price point for the Blackwidow V3 Mini Hyperspeed is $179. Ouch. It really looks like Razer took the safest approach to design and release a 65% keyboard, because aside from being wireless, both from 2.4 GHz and Bluetooth, and the promising but not yet fully fleshed out dual dongle connectivity with other peripherals, it's not really special in any way, especially when you compare it to the ROG Falcon that is cheaper, has more cool features like that side capacitive touch button that is a volume rocker, that has macros, it has the battery illumination display. The ROG keyboard also comes with this awesome cover for the keyboard that can be used as a base as well, and also because the shorter spacebar, the bottom row is basically standard, while being $30 cheaper versus the V3 Mini. Now, if you don't care about wireless, I can 100% recommend the Streak 65 from Fnatic. That is my go-to gaming keyboard because it's super compact, low profile, and the switches are incredible. And if you're looking for something totally different, the Ducky Mecha SF Ocean Edition is absolutely stunning with that unique colorway and that cast aluminum frame. Look, the Blackwidow V3 Mini Hyperspeed is just your simple, basic 65% keyboard that is wireless. And Bluetooth maybe is like the only standout feature versus the competition, like the ROG Falcon. but you know, maybe it's exactly what you're looking for and it's exactly what Razer released, but I was hoping for something a bit more special, especially because it's very expensive. And I know that this is part of the Blackwidow family, so the design has to carry with that chin and that gloss, but potentially that gloss part could have been matte and the metal piece underneath the keycaps could have been a slightly different texture, just to give you a little bit of a prettier product after like 10 hours of usage. So otherwise it's a bit underwhelming. All right guys, I'm Dmitry, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the Blackwidow V3 Mini Hyperspeed. Check out this other relevant content, and I'll talk to you in the next video.